Hi everyone, my name's Alice Barkley and I'm a contributing writer for Human Rights Pulse. I'm joined by Liska Bernet, who is the director and co-founder of Grassroots. We're going to be talking a bit about refugees and asylum seekers in the Aegean region of Greece and how the pandemic has affected them, particularly women and girls. Thanks for joining me, Liska. I thought we could start just by talking a bit about your background and how and why you came to found Grassroots.
Yeah, so I have actually a master's in international development from LSE, and then I worked for a couple of different large international NGOs already before my master's. And in 2015, I kind of started to get involved in this volunteer movement when a lot of refugees started to arrive at the borders of Europe. So I first went to Serbia and other countries in the Balkans as a volunteer for short amounts of times in the beginning. And then I ended up a bit later in the fall 2015 going to Lesbos, and it was just a crazy situation with thousands of people that arrived at the shores there, and basically no aid. Nothing happened. So then me and some other volunteers started to get organized and to provide aid. And we just kind of kept going from there. Then later I moved to Athens and started the project there. And after a few years, I realized, okay, that's what I want to keep doing. There is a huge need for these grassroots projects in Greece, but also in other places. And then together with a friend from Switzerland, we started Grassroots to keep building projects to support refugees that come to Europe.
Yeah, it's really great and it's so needed at the moment. What are you doing at the moment in terms of activities, and what have you been doing over the past couple of years on the ground in Greece?
So project-wise, we're doing different things in Switzerland. For example, we have several projects in Switzerland, and there we focus more on the integration, obviously, especially on labor market integration. So we have a variety of different projects that it's like mentoring projects, but also lots of interview workshops, job preparation workshops, and things like that. For people with refugee status, so they can find jobs or internships and in the end be self-sufficient and live a normal life basically, which is what everyone wants in the end. In Greece, we focus more on also emergency aid. We have projects on Samos and on Kos at the moment, women's center. So we focus specifically on women. The projects are kind of community centers, but where we provide a lot of different types of aid. So one thing is that it's just distributions of basic things that people need, such as, hygiene items, sanitary pads. We also distribute condoms, all those type of things, but then also vitamins, like specific things or vitamins for pregnant women and things like that. And just foods, people can just come chill out there normally, hang with their, be with their friends, like get away from the camp. And then we also provide lots of educational classes such as English, Greek, and we provide computer courses. And this is already a bit of a start, for later on. Many people have to wait for many years or many months on the Greek islands, and in the end they will be in the same point where the people that we support with our projects in Switzerland are. So we already want to start that people can use the time they have to spend on these islands as good as possible. And gain relevant skills that will help them later to integrate in society in European countries, wherever they'll be. And then, of course, we also provide psychosocial support, different psychosocial support activities, which is also very important in the context that women here have to live. Yeah.
I think that's so important to have a space that's specifically for women, because on Samos, because I think women are often sort of forgotten and their needs aren't met, and they might require different things from men. So it's so great that you kind of can offer that support. and those psychosocial activities to support the women. In terms of Samos and Kos, I think definitely in the UK media, you hear quite a lot about Athens and Lesbos, but maybe not so much kind of the other Aegean islands. What is the situation like there at the moment on the ground in Samos and Kos, and how are they different?
Yeah, I mean that's true everywhere. You always hear about Lesbos because it's the island with the most refugees. But there are also 4 other hotspots or so-called hotspots under the EU-Turkey deal, which are Kos, Samos, Leros, and Chios. It really depends on the island what the situation is like. On Samos, for example, at the moment I think there are around 3,500 people, and most of the people actually live in what we call the jungle, so a really informal kind of settlement on a hill, where people just build their own huts or live in tents and like that. On Kos, for example, the situation is completely different. It's there the camp is, it's like looks kind of like a prison, an army camp. There's an open part and also a closed part. There's huge fencing all around. Yeah, and there people, like, it's way more regulated. Everyone lives inside there, and there are opening times. Like now during COVID, there are no opening times, so everyone is like has to stay inside there 24/7 basically for many months now. Yeah. So the situation really depends on the island.
You mentioned that the pandemic has sort of had a bit of an impact on Kos. How has it affected the situation in Samos? And do you think it is something that affects men and women and boys and girls differently in this situation?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, the one thing that it definitely does is forces people to stay inside terrible conditions. The conditions are already terrible anyways, but at least before, the lockdown happened, basically people could go outside, and at least during the day they could spend their days somewhere else. They could go to community centers, that, like, there are lots of different ones. You can take classes, you can do things, you can get support. You can also just go to the beach and just have a change of scenery and be away from the camp, where it's really intense. So many people living on such a small space, and now basically people are forced, and women are forced, to stay inside all day long. And this, of course, is super difficult for many of the women. We've heard of many of the women that told us that they're afraid to leave their tents, even more so because there's a lot of harassment going on within the camp as well. Groups of men also drinking, there are drugs involved, things like that. And it can become super uncomfortable and unsafe as well to walk around during the day, but of course especially during the night. So this definitely had a huge impact. And then if something happens, it's also just way more difficult to get support, because you can't leave easily. And it is kind of a love-free zone oftentimes. So it's just, I think it made it a lot more difficult for many of the women. And then I think another thing is that also asylum procedures often stop during lockdowns, because also all the authorities or the different offices, they stop working or they can't go to the offices. And this is another thing, like, that has a huge impact on the mental health of many people, because they just want to leave this horrible place and move on and start moving on with their life and build it again. And it kind of puts everything even more on hold, and people don't know for how long, what's going to happen, when movement is going to be possible again. And this is really difficult for many people.
And I think the mental health of people living inside the camp is something that's, it's been bad before because of the nature of a lot of the experiences the people have had already and the places they've come from, conflicts and things. And I think all over the world, mental health is a conversation that's really come out of the pandemic. And I think it's so important to talk about it, especially for women and people in this camp. So when I was in Samos last year, 2020, there was some discussion about a new camp that was being built out of Athi, away from where it is currently. a purpose-built camp to replace the current one. Why is this problematic, especially from the perspective of an organisation that works from Bathy?
Yeah, I mean, there are different sides to it. On one side, it's really important there should be a camp where, you know, or there should be a space where, like, where people are provided for in a better way. So, you know, the positive side, hopefully this camp will have inside better conditions, so more space for people. There will be hopefully showers, electricity, things like that. I mean, who knows in the end, but this is at least what it's what's it's supposed to look like. On the other hand, of course, we are all extremely worried because it will be also completely like fenced in camp. They say it will be open every day for like from 7 to 7 or whatever, you know, but this is something they will be super easy to change if the authorities want to change that. And also this camp is built in the middle of nowhere, so even if people can get out, and this is what we're seeing in Kos as well, the camp is in the middle of nowhere, so even if people can go out during the day, they can't afford to, maybe there is once a day a bus, you know, but that you can't afford to do this like every day. Maybe once or twice a month you can afford to do that. And then of course we're all worried, who will have access to this camp? Will it be possible, you know, whatever violations happening there, how, you know, how can this be recorded, and all those type of questions, which, yeah, worries many people as well. And I think what I hear from many of the people that live in the camp now, they're absolutely horrified of the thought of this camp, because it takes away the last agency they have. At least here, you know, they're really close to the main town. They can go to town, they can do their own shopping, you know, cook their own food in the end, and with those kind of things. Or, yeah, some people, you know, they can go sit in cafes if they want. They can, you know, like just make life a bit normal. And I think that's super important for everyone. And I think, yeah, this will not be possible anymore. And many people like are really, really afraid of that.
Yeah, I think that idea of sort of having your own freedom and not being in a space that resembles sort of a military prison or something is, yeah, it's quite scary, really. I thought we'd just finish just on a positive note, sort of looking forward. For anyone who's watching this, who might want to get involved and make a positive difference to the lives of refugees in Europe, do you have any advice or pointers for what they can do, either in terms of kind of advocacy and campaigning, or hands-on volunteering in their communities?
Yeah, I think at the moment, especially, the most important thing that I always tell people, like, just stay informed, like informed, because, you know, the media is almost not talking about what is happening at the borders of Europe anymore, like here in Greece, for example, and there's so much is happening here. Many bad things are happening, you know, also with the whole pushbacks and all those. So stay informed and try to inform others. Maybe if you're at uni or somewhere, give a presentation, I don't know, you know, just make sure this topic stays relevant and people are informed about it and they know what's going on, because this is the basic, that's what's needed for any change to happen. And then of course there are ways of getting more involved directly. Either you can support groups that work on the ground financially, but you can also go volunteer, especially if you have, like, I think during COVID it's a bit more difficult, but I think if you have more time, I think this is definitely always something great you can do. And people that have very specific skills can also, you know, support these groups on the ground remotely. Like, for example, if you're a graphic designer, I don't know, there's so many different skills that are needed on the ground and maybe not always here. So yeah, just ask, see what's needed and how you can get involved and support.
Yeah, I think that definitely in the mainstream media, unless there's a big event like the fire in Lesbos or the earthquake in Samos, people tend to forget that it's going on, especially with, you know, everyone having problems because of COVID. It's so important to keep the conversation going and speak to people who are actually seeing it firsthand and can speak about kind of what the situation is as it unfolds. So thank you so much for joining me to talk about all this. It's been so interesting and informative, and I hope that everyone watching this goes and checks out your website and your Instagram at Local Roots. Thanks so much.
Yeah, as well.